part of the beauty of living in America. Like, you want something, you can go and get it. And you shouldn't have to explain or justify to anybody why you want it. You should just be able to go get it. Hey, I'm Travis Chappell, host of the Travis Makes Friends podcast. And if I can build the life of my dreams, then I know that you can too. So please check out this episode that I did with Liberty.
Leave every relationship better than when you found it, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's the thing that most people fail to understand, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that was kind of the sign off for my show for a long time. Actually, something I'm going to start bringing back on the podcast is signing off every show like that, because that is something that rings true for me, and it's something that I believe, and it's something that I just always try to do, if it's possible at all, to add 51% of the value in every relationship and leave everyone, better than you found them, to help out in some way, regardless of what that looks like. So yeah, it's been kind of the ethos of my entire show from the very beginning.
It's beautiful. And man, it's like, I've been looking back at, because when we first did our first interview, I was in Columbia, South Carolina. I had left California I had 3 months. I was going to go there, make my first album and all this stuff. And that's when you and I met. We had our first interview. And I was just thinking, like, I'm just thanking God. I'm just like, because I really need to start making better connections. I need to make real friends that are actually doing stuff. But I was like, at the time, I was thinking, man, this is just going to be like, we're going to have one meeting. He's just going to like totally forget about me. Right. And I'm really, really grateful for you, because you've been here, you've been consistent with you message me on Facebook, you answer my emails and all that. And it's like, I'm always afraid I'm going to like scare people away. They're going to think I'm crazy because I'm like texting them too much or something like that, but you've been a really source of strength for me, and I really appreciate you for that.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. That's, like I said, that's kind of, if my time is really scarce, so it's not as you might have noticed, it might not be as like in abundance as it used to, in terms of like responding and maybe even depth of the messages that I can send or whatever. But
yeah,
but I always try to at least respond at some point.
Yeah, because you got that new mastermind coming up. Be a full-time creator, right?
Yeah. So that's something I'm working on with a buddy of mine, just to help creators try to make more money. So yeah, we launched that kind of soft launch about 2 months ago, just to try to bring some people in and help out, see if we can help people make some.
Right now it's only $1, right? It's still $1.
It's $1. Yeah, it's $1 for 2 weeks, and then after 2 weeks it renews to $79 a month.
Oh, okay. So you don't have the $49 option anymore?
No, we it was $49 for the first 50 members, which got filled up in the first like 2 weeks.
What about your book though? I think it was Jen Gottlieb you were talking to, where you were talking about you were writing a book, or?
I said I was thinking about writing a book, which I have been for a while. I just haven't really had the desire to really do it that much, to be honest with you. It's just always kind of been in the back of my head and something that I want to do at some point, but it was just never like it's never been a priority, and it's never been, something that I felt like I needed to do. However, I will say that urge is coming up more and more often now. So yeah, we might be getting closer to that point. So I've been talking with more author friends and just asking more questions and been more curious about it, been trying to flex my writing skills a little bit more, and start fleshing out some different ideas and dictating some thoughts into my phone a little bit when I'm on walks and things like that. So in the very, very early pre-planning stages of like, I think that we might be coming up on about time to write something.
I will say this. I love Grant Cardone, and you two are probably the two people that I look up to the most, that I want to be like. And I have all of his books. I love his writing. I mean, because I listen to I don't read. I listen to the audio because he reads it himself. It's just he's captivating because he just tells the truth. Like, just like you, like when you're on your podcast, you're just you.
Yeah.
Like sometimes people take writing and they try to make it into like, you know what I mean? Like they just want to sound smart or something like that. But, I just love that because
people
advice and.
Well, first of all, I appreciate putting me in the same conversation with Grant. He's infinitely more successful than I am monetarily anyway. But
He's older though, so
yeah, a little bit, about twice my age. But yeah, he's crushing nonetheless. He's got the energy of a 30-year-old, that's for sure.
right.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just like the last thing that I wanted to do with this book, with a book, is just to like just produce a book for the sake of writing a book. It's like I
Hmm.
kind of did that once. It was just kind of like, oh, well, everybody kept telling me I should have a book. So I was like, all right, I'll write a book. And basically all it was like a transcribed version of a course that I made that was written by a ghostwriter that I just like edited and approved. And we like
Oh wow.
did it in like 4 weeks and helped, and this ghostwriter friend of mine helped me like turn the formatting into a book and whatever. And it was just never something that I was proud of, and it was never something that
Right.
it's like it's available on Amazon right now, but it's
Oh
just not
really?
like it's just not something I was ever super proud of. So you never hear me talk about it. You've never seen me push it. I've never tried to sell copies of it. I gave away a bunch at like an event or something one time, but it was never something that was like constant. Like it was just, yeah, I wasn't proud of it. And that process just taught me that like, if I'm going to do a book, I'm
Do it
not going to
right.
do these like cheap league magnet type books. Not to say that
Yeah.
those are bad. They serve a purpose. It's just not a purpose that I'm interested in
They're
serving.
usually not
I
good
just
though. They're
yeah,
usually not good.
they're just not as good. They're obviously not as good. Like I said, they it's like it's a task on their list. So like people will they'll knock out a book in a week and a half, and it's like, okay, cool. But then they self publish it and it goes out on Amazon, and and then the only way they sell it is the free plus shipping offer that they put in their funnel so they can get
Yeah.
people's credit card information. But then whenever, like, anytime I've gotten books like that, it's just, I'm always underwhelmed by the quality of the book. And it almost
Exactly.
makes me like lose trust in the person that wrote it
Yep.
rather than gain trust, which is the
Yep.
opposite of the effect that you want when you write a book.
Right.
So for me, it was just like, again, not to say that you shouldn't do that or that's dumb or people can't do that or that's a bad move. Do whatever you want to do. I just personally, after like that experience writing, like coming up with that first book, taught me that like if I'm going to do another book, it's going to be a real book that adds to the total body of
Yeah.
content that exists in the world, and is something that's more like a baby of mine that I mostly write by
Yeah.
myself. Like, of course, I'll have some editors look at it. Of course, I'll have a ghostwriter or two like help me out with some things or whatever. Like, I'm not against hiring professionals to do their job, right? But
Right.
I do want the majority of it to be written by me and have it be
Right.
like what you're saying, my thoughts, my ideas, the way that I would say them, the stories that I would tell. And yeah, I want it just to be like a real project, something that would take me a good amount of time, but also something that I'll be really, really proud of at the end of
Right.
the day.
See, yes. That's the thing. Like the thing is you need to stick to what you're saying there, because what you're saying is don't do it. Yeah, people can do what they want to do and they're going to do it regardless of what you say, but it's totally wrong. I would say don't do it. Don't do anything unless you can put your whole heart into it. If you're not into it, nobody else will be into it. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, people can tell. You know,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
your audience can tell. Like, anybody that's consumed my content for any length of time, if they read a book from me, they would be able to tell if I wrote it or if somebody else wrote it.
Yep.
Just like, if you know my stuff well enough, then you're gonna be able to tell, and it's just not gonna be as good of a book. It's not gonna have the desired effect of like
Hmm.
continually connecting with your audience or furthering or deepening a relationship with people who may know you already or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think for that reason, I'm gonna like try to make it a real project. I'm gonna try to make it. I'm gonna try to get a publishing deal. If I were uh, if I had a bigger kind of personal brand, then it might make sense for me to self-publish. But at this point, I think I would rather go through a publisher and like go through a
Hmm.
traditional book writing process, just to get a glimpse of how the professionals do it. It's like, yeah, you can
Right.
publish, sure, but there's a reason that publishers exist. It's like there's a
Yeah.
ton of stuff about writing and publishing and distributing a book that I just don't know. And
And you
working
don't
with a
need to do
professional
all that.
experience, yeah, exactly, can help
Yeah.
me do that. Even if it makes me lose a little bit of IP or rights or whatever, just like to me, it's like
Yeah.
I would rather have this big stamp of approval and credibility and a team of professionals helping me,
Right.
at least for like the first book or two that I come up with. At some point, maybe I'm like, oh well, I should self-publish. And I talked to a guy recently, made me feel better about it because he was saying he wrote his first or second book he wrote was a traditional publisher, And then he just bought the rights back from that publisher like a year ago,
Wow.
almost a decade after he wrote the book. So because he wanted to like do more things with it that they weren't allowing him to do because they own the rights to the book and the content. So he just bought the rights back from them. So like there's even like stuff like that I've thought about. It's like there are options if this path doesn't yield what I want it to yield. There are options.
Yeah.
But I think the pros
And
outweigh the cons for the first one.
you'll find it. You'll find it, whatever, because you're known for that. Like, that kind of leads into, kind of segues into what I was going to ask. Well, first of all, I don't want to forget to tell you, I love your, I know I told you this before, like in DMs and stuff, like on Facebook, but I freaking love your writing. You are the only one that when people send me emails, it pisses me off so much because even Grant, love you, Grant, but it's all about buy this every single time. But you're the only one that you actually, and you write it. And it's real, and sorry for my language, but you
Hey,
know,
it's your show. You can say whatever
right.
the hell you
Well,
want to say.
but, it's like you really write, and it's just like, cause it's so simple that it's profound, if that makes sense. You know
Sure.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It's easy to understand, but it's so good, you know?
That's the essence of good writing to me, right? Is like
Yeah.
simplifying complex concepts into digestible,
Thank you.
pieces of
Yeah.
information.
Yeah, I'm not here for you so you can make yourself look smart. You got to teach me something, make me smart.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Make me
Exactly.
open up my mind, make me think about something. You make me feel grateful. Mostly
Well,
every time I read your stuff, it's all about, mostly everything you write is about gratitude. Same, you know what I mean?
well, there's just if you want to build audience, if you want to build fans, if you want to build influence, it is directly correlated to the amount of value that you can bring to that community.
Right.
Value equals influence. Like the reason that people have influence over you, think of like all of the big quote unquote influencers like Gary Vee or Tony Robbins or Grant Cardone or even
Love them all.
musicians, actresses, what like across all verticals, not just entrepreneurship. The reason that they have influence is because of the value that they've added to your life. A
Right.
musician, you like their music, that's value. An actor, you like their movies, that's value. It entertains you, it brings you joy, it brings you happiness, it puts a smile on your face, makes you laugh, makes you feel lovey-dovey, makes you feel sad, makes you feel a certain way. It elicits an emotion, it adds value to your life in some regard. And maybe it's educational like a Jordan Peterson, or maybe it's a beauty niche and it helps you feel more confident because you got these whatever eyelashes or whatever because of the makeup tutorial that you watch every morning. Like it just all influence stems from the value that you can create in the world around you. And so nobody cares if you're really smart if you can't help them get smarter. You know,
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
like that's why there's so many of these guys that have just blown up into uh essentially overnight fame to a certain degree. Obviously, they've been working in their careers for a long time, but they haven't been creating content for that long. People like Andrew Huberman or Lex Friedman, some of these guys that Joe Rogan is really like, propelled into the stratosphere of fame. Um, but the reason that they stay famous, like they get their shot on Rogan, but the reason that they continually gain a massive audience is because the value they provide is in volume, high in volume, high in quality, and it's unique to them. It's stuff that only they would be able to speak about intelligently. Only they would be able to disseminate this information properly and package it and give it to you in a way that's really simple to understand. And so, those people are the ones that end up with the biggest audiences, are the people who can add the most value.
Yep. Yep. I was watching that Grant Cardone interview with you and Grant. I think it was like either probably right. Was it right during the pandemic, when the pandemic first started, that you guys did that, or?
There was a couple. The first one was actually like 2018. So
I think that was it was a, I think it was that one because you were introducing it and you were saying that you did the interview. It was one where he kept saying, "Man, you're really good at interviewing. I got to send my friends over here and stuff like
oh yeah,
that."
yeah, that was in 2018. Yeah, that was a while ago. That was
Yeah.
5, 6 years ago.
Well, I didn't know you had other ones. I might have seen them, but I don't remember because I watched so much with him. And I love his wife, Elena, too. She texts me sometimes. She's so sweet.
Yeah, she's great.
Um, she's a strong woman. But yeah, so anyway, I was watching that and I was thinking, man, that's what I wanted to talk about with you because we didn't really talk about it that much, but about money and like, you know, remember we were talking about that before, why people are saying that, you know, rich people are bad and all this stuff because they, you know what I mean? They're too lazy to put the work in and stuff like that. And I was like, see, that's what we need to do. We need to talk about that. And the problem is because people don't hear enough people who have money talking about it, you know, and you
Right.
went through so much. You just started sharing your story. You need to share that more about all the things that you went through and share it in a like shorts, you know what I mean? Like do more like on TikTok and stuff so that people know that about you. You know what I mean? They don't
And
know, you know what I mean?
the thing is, people like to vilify people with money because it reminds them of all the stuff that they don't have,
Yep.
and reminds them of the idea that they could go get it.
Yeah.
That's why it's easier to think that rich people are bad, because it makes you feel better about the fact that you're not rich, because you immediately tell yourself like, oh, I'm not that type of a person. I'm not a bad person, so I can't be rich. So it's
Mm-hmm.
easier for you to believe that rich people are bad rather than believe that it's possible for you to do good in the world and also make a lot of money. You know what I mean? So, that's why in culture, in pop culture, rich people are vilified so much, because people who make movies and people who make television shows, they're marketing to the broad public of people who
Right.
are objectively not rich. So when you're,
And
you
they're
know,
taking those people's money.
well, exactly. I mean, like all the people that are producing the movies are people who have a lot of money, but they
Right.
picture rich people as being bad. And majority of like television, film, that entire industry just depicts rich people as being bad people, because that's the marketing message that the masses want to hear. Like
Right.
they know their end customer. Their end customer is not rich, and portraying rich people in a negative light confirms their own belief about what they think rich people are, because they don't actually know any rich people. And
Yep.
most people won't know rich people. Like the only way to know rich people, if you grew up kind of like how I did without knowing them, is being intentional about going and getting around them. And most people will never do that because it's not a priority to them. So
Yep.
the only exposure they get to rich people is watching shows like Billions, or that murder mystery Knives Out, the Glass Onion one on Netflix.
I
Like,
never heard of that.
yeah, they watch some of these things that just they again like continuously vilify the rich people, like suggesting that the only way to get rich is to get over on people, that the rich people are secretly bad, and they exist in these high societies and they hate poor people, and like there's just this constant rhetoric that exists to make people who have a lot of money seem like they're really bad people.
Yeah.
When in my experience, the people who I've met who have a lot of money are
The best.
typically forces for good, and not to say
Yeah.
that there aren't some bad people, because there are some bad people, but typically money is not the factor that made them good or bad. Money
Right.
is typically a magnifier
Magnifier.
of who
Yep.
you currently are. And so the more you get of it, the more of that person you're going to become. Now, there's, I think, some good research around, to a certain degree of like wealth, people tend to change their behavior a little bit more. um but I frankly haven't like read enough about that to speak intelligently about it. But I do know there is some research that exists that is like, somewhere in between like the poverty threshold, like once you make whatever that number is, 60,000 a year, 70,000 a year or whatever, it money doesn't really affect your happiness. And then like somewhere in between that 60 or 70,000 a year, all the way up to somewhere between like, I don't know, quarter billion, 300 million a year. There's not really anything that happens to your happiness on like that growth curve. But then past that, because you've taken care of everything that you could possibly take care of in life, and you could never work again and still be wealthy as long as you're decently smart with your money at that point. Like at that point, from what I've read or from some research that I've seen, there's some evidence that points to like it could potentially alter people's personalities, to almost delude themselves into this new version of life that they have achieved. So but either way, like that's such a small percentage of people that it's like not anything to worry about. And like define rich, define a lot of money, define wealth, you know what I mean? Because like that, what I'm talking about is like people who are getting 200, 300, $400 million. Like there's a massive gap between that and making, 30,000 a year. It's like, well, you know, what if I made 1 million a year? What if I made 2 million? What if I made 4 million? What if I made 12 million? Like in that gap exists a lot of potential for people to completely change everything about their life, and have that money just be a magnifier of who they are. But then that's why it's so important to work on yourself constantly, to develop yourself, to develop your skill sets, to develop your soft skills like compassion and kindness, and different things like that. Because while you're on, and that's why I find that like a lot of successful people with money that I know, I find them to be really high quality good people because of the work that they had to put in to achieve the level of wealth that they have. Like not a lot of people have sharpened themselves as individuals to become that version of themselves in order to be able to achieve what they've achieved. So the
Yep.
process of becoming rich actually is what made them a good person, because it's a
Yep.
really difficult path and it's not
Right.
one that most people will take. So the fact that
It's
you took that path and then push through failure after failure, obstacle after obstacle, and you learned over and over again, you shed terrible versions of yourself over and over again continuously for years on end, like that turned you into a better person objectively. And then once you earned the money, then you become a magnification of the better person that you became by getting the money to begin with. And that's why you don't see that it translates with people who like win the lottery, or people
yep.
even sometimes who make it to professional sports when they're young, or people who inherited all their money, right? The trust fund people, like you don't see that those two things correlate because they weren't the ones that put in the effort to create the wealth.
Right.
I think
Exactly.
there's a correlation there.
If you don't mind, I know you're on a time limit, but can I ask you two more questions?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so it might take you might want to have a long explanation, especially for this one. But you mentioned I can't remember. It was one of your interview. Oh, what was his name? Chris. That the guy. I have it written down. Well, anyway, your friend that does the preacher podcast.
Oh, Eric.
Yeah, Eric. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was gonna. Okay. Well, and you mentioned, and I was like, wow, that's. I've had the problem feeling guilty about money and stuff.
Yeah.
And if you could explain, you said this is kind of paraphrasing, but you said something like feeling guilty where I don't need to be. I shouldn't be feeling guilty. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I grew up, very religious. So there was a lot of guilt associated with having money until you had money. That was like kind of the weird thing in religion, right? It's like they vilify the pursuit of money, but if you have money, they want you to come to their church and give you all their money so they can build buildings and stuff like that.
Right.
So it's kind of a weird. It's like they vilify money until somebody with money comes on the campus and then they worship that person, and it was always a disconnect to me. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's I feel like I had a ton of guilt around trying to go make money. Like just admitting to myself that I wanted to make money was a difficult thing for me to admit to myself out loud. It was difficult for me to say the words out loud
Yep.
because it made me feel instantly like this is not a worthy pursuit in life. That's a terrible thing to want. And yeah, it's just something I've learned, that if you want something, you don't have to explain why you want it. You can just want it. And then as long as you're not hurting yourself or other people by going and getting it, then you should be able to want something and go and get it. It's part of the beauty of living in America. Like you want something, you can go and get it. And you shouldn't have to explain or justify to anybody why you want it. You should just be able to go get it. So
Standing ovation.
yeah. So it took me a little while to kind of get over that guilt. And I think in some ways it still affects me to this day. But yeah, it did take me a little while.
I really appreciate that. Just like last time, we talked about this, and I want to just God bless you. I really appreciate that because it affected me for the longest time. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel guilty for wanting money. She didn't sleep on the streets with me. Nobody did,
Yeah.
except maybe Jesus. You could say Jesus did, or God, or whatever you want to say, but I'm the one that did this internal work, and it was very hard. I don't have to feel guilty. I can want what I want, and I want it, and not that it doesn't really matter, I guess, but I to other people, but it matters to me. I'm doing this because I want to help people. The reason that I wanted to meet you and people like you who have money is because I wanted to make sure, for myself, like, yeah, wealthy people are good. So it's kind of like you gave me permission to want it, even though, like you said, I really didn't need it, but I felt like I did.
Well, good. I'm glad I was helpful.
Yeah, you and Evan Carmichael and I met him and Gary Vaynerchuk. I got to meet Grant and Elena, but Tom Bilyeu, and I met him and Lisa, and just amazing people. And I'm just so freaking grateful, you know. Um, I have one more question. Well, I had two, I guess, if you don't mind. Just two
Yeah,
questions.
yeah. We'll rapid fire
Okay.
them off.
Okay. So one is, do you ever feel that there's in now that you're a millionaire and everything, do you feel that like people just, I don't know, like even Jackie and other people that you really care about and stuff, and new people too. But do you feel that maybe people kind of sometimes that they how can I say this, that they're more affectionate towards you or something,
Mm.
because you have money, or you know what I mean?
Um, I think that might come with the territory sometimes, but like it's typically just anytime you have something that other people want, they tend to be more open to hearing you out on things, and that kind of results in more kindness. Um, I think it's fairly easy to spot people, unless you're like a sociopath or psychopath. I think it's pretty easy to spot people who are just using you pretty
Yeah.
quickly, and those are just called takers. And I don't spend my time with takers.
Right. Yeah. You're a strong man. You're smart. I just wish I would have got smarter sooner, but that's why I started my business, because I want people to get smarter than I did. Smarter sooner. I'll continue to get smarter my whole life. That's my big goal, is to get smarter. But I
Should
want to
be
help people right. I just want to help other people to be like, hey, I'm not gonna wait that long and make that many mistakes. I'm gonna do it now.
right.
Um, but okay, so the other thing is, like, I know, like, I don't think that I haven't watched all of your stuff, but I feel like it's so I know Tom Bilyeu, right? Yeah, I know you've met him and you've interviewed him, right?
Mhm.
But I feel like you, me, and Tom and Lisa, like we have this whole, but you haven't really made a public announcement. Do you think that do you plan on being like an entertainment empire, or do you know what I mean? Because like you've been recently interviewing a lot of people like The Rock and stuff like that, and
Well,
NBA
I
players
didn't
and
interview The Rock. That was my partner, my
oh
business
oh
partner,
that's right,
Chris.
yeah.
Yeah. But it's always been fascinating to me. I like the entertainment world. I like comedy. I like I like acting. Like just process of creating movies and TV and telling stories that way is really fascinating to me. So I would like to continue to get more into that space for sure. Right now, it's not in the cards, but I think potentially later it could be. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, is there anything that you want to tell people? Like, say there's somebody out there struggling right now and they're feeling guilty over wanting money. Maybe they're having, like a crisis with God, or maybe just with their own self, or whatever. And they're feeling guilty because they want to have money, they want to be wealthy. What would you tell that person? Like, like your former self kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess go make better friends. First of all, go make friends who have money, who um, it's really easy for people without money to vilify people who have money. So go get around people who do have money and see what their life looks like. See how they
Mm-hmm.
behave, see what their conversations are. You'll probably find that they're less spiteful, they're less gossipy, they spend their time more talking about productive things than unproductive things. They spend their time doing productive things rather than just staying quote unquote busy. You'll find a
Yeah.
lot of differences between the two crowds. And again, this is not to say that all people with money are good people. It's not saying that at all. It's just saying
Right.
that money doesn't define whether you're good or bad.
Right.
So that'd be the first thing. The second thing would just be to interrogate yourself. Whenever I'm in a state of like uncertainty, or just like I'm not sure what I'm doing, or I feel lost, or I feel burnt out, or something like that, I try to interrogate myself as much as I can. Meaning, like I just ask myself questions, and I'll journal and just like write down questions. And I don't, I'm not even a lot of times I don't even write down the answers to the questions. I just write down the question and stare at the question and ponder and think and be with myself and my thoughts for a second to kind of gather my purpose again and reconnect with why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think that's been a helpful practice for me.
Yeah. I had a thought. This is what I was thinking earlier. I just wanted to say this real quick. You were saying about the book, and you wrote that book and you weren't proud of it and stuff. and you're basically just doing it just to do it and like maybe possibly get some clients or something like that. And I was thinking, you know, a lot of people do that. And those, to me, I don't care how much money you have. If you're doing something like that, I'm not saying that you're evil, but you're not really good either. And if you're doing like, and I'm not saying you're evil because you did that, but you know, like now that you're like, you said, I don't want to do something unless I'm proud of it. I feel the exact same way. But the way that people do those things, that's the way, if they're doing it, you could be a millionaire or a billionaire. But if you're doing something like that, in my opinion, you're still poor, because that's what poor people do. They do jobs just to do it and just to get paid.
Yeah.
They don't care about the job. They don't care about the people. I see it every day all around me. It's there. And it makes me so mad. That's why I'll never get a job again, because I have a business and I want, with my sincere heart, I just want to put some really out there that's really great, that makes people, like, it moves them in their hearts and their minds and their bodies, and they go and do shit and it makes them feel great too, and they start to make money too, and they start to become better people and realize like their whole life they were in a prison, but now they're free. Yeah. You can check out both of the full episodes that Travis and I did together in this playlist called Minute with a Millionaire. So I can personally tell you that Travis is a great guy. He has a free podcast, Travis Makes Friends, okay? So check out that on YouTube, and he's in all the podcast platforms, audio and visual, the videos and all that. Also, he has a Facebook group, which is so cool, which helps people podcast a profit, and I'll put the link there. It's free to join, and you just go there and you just got to follow the rules, but you can network with people and you can post questions, and there's a lot of really cool, friendly people that'll help you out. You need a friend like this on your side. Thank you again, Travis. You're worth it. My name is Liberty V Justice. There's no period in my V because my victories never end, and I'm here to help you get your victories, legend. You're worth it. Subscribe.